Hey everyone, this is Utkarsh. I'm a co-founder of this community, creators of products, and I'm a product manager. In case you don't know about creators of products, this is an open community for all kinds of creators. We have a lot of product managers, engineers, designers, founders, students, and we're pretty much open to everyone. What we do over here is we host and conduct discussions on a lot of our Slack channels on mainly about product building, how you can build better products, what you have built so far, and sharing and learning from each other. We do have very specific initiatives such as mentorship, or you can, for jobs, you can get your resumes vetted on through one of these initiatives, and that's pretty much what we do. I will share a link to join us on Slack and also a link to our website. Do check it out. Today we are hosting a session number 3 of Design for Everyone series. In case you weren't following us, we have had 2 major sessions so far. The first one was breaking into design, and that was aimed at aspiring designers. The next one that we did was Figma for everyone, and that was aimed for, all kinds of product creators, where Priyanka taught us how you can use Figma, even if you're not a designer, and the things that you should know. Do check them out on YouTube. Since you have registered, I have already mailed it on your email addresses. Do check that out. And today we have Fatema Raja with us. She is a part of brand and design team at FamPay. And the session for today is working with designers. She will cover a lot of different topics that we have in mind. I'll let her speak more on that. Yeah, that's about it. This session, in general, is divided into 2 parts. In the first part, maybe 20 to 25 minutes, Fatima will speak about what she has in her mind, what she has prepared for all of us, and she is also sharing a screen. So in case you're on phone, do look at the screen. And in the second half of the session, we'll take all the questions that you have, related to this session or in general. We do have a list of all the questions that you had asked during the sign-up form. I had shared it with Fatima, and she will take some of those interesting ones today. Yeah, that's about it. Over to you, Fatima. Wait, I think, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Let me make your co-host as well.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Utkarsh, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone had a great start to the weekend. Thank you so much for showing up on a Saturday evening. I really appreciate it. And Utkarsh, thank you so much for helping us organize this. I hope we have a good session and good fun. For the first, like Utkarsh mentioned, 20 minutes, I will just be talking about working with designers, and hopefully we have more Q&A, and we just open it up as a discussion and a conversation amongst ourselves. So yeah, before we dive into the topic of working with designers, I would love to quickly introduce myself. So as you guys know, my name is Fatema. I am currently working at FamPay in the design team. And before that, I was at Gojek for about 6 years. While my journey at Gojek, I had a chance to dabble into various disciplines of design, from brand design to product design to design ops. At the same time, I had an amazing opportunity to work with great other design leaders, other designers, product managers, and engineers. It has been a roller coaster of a ride, but a great journey. Other than work, I am someone who is very much drawn by nature. I like to spend as much as my time in water or in the forest hiking. I also like to do a lot of things with my hands. So I like to paint, play with textures and colors. Last year, I did this very tiny series for myself where I tried to capture all the good moments from my travels onto these tiny canvases that I tried to paint. It's something that I picked up last year as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. In today's topic, I thought a lot about thinking of all the tips and tricks that I can give out to be working with designers, how you can actually give them feedback, how you can actually bring them in conversations. But before that, I thought it was very important for all of us to kind of little bit get a sneak peek and understand who these designers are. Who are these people behind the title designer? How do they think? How do they perceive the world? How do they feel things, and how do they work? So I'm going to talk about a little bit on how designers think and how designers perceive the world for the first part of this talk. And the second part, I will talk about how do you leverage some of these qualities to actually work with them. I'm sure a lot of you all must have heard about the idea or the myth, whatever that we want to call it, of right brain dominant and left brain dominant, and how so many of designers are considered to be right brain dominant. But what does it really mean to be right brain dominant? What does it really mean to have these quality of being more emotional, more holistic thinkers, more imaginative, more creative, obsessive? How do these qualities actually influence the final product that we design? How do these qualities impact the final product that we design? So I would like to go one by one into all of these various qualities. I haven't been able to list them all, but hopefully just the 4 will give you all enough insight about how the right brainers, who are slightly different than the logical, analytical left brainers, really think and work. The first quality I would like to talk about is how we are more of an emotional beings, how designers are more of an emotional beings. For the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to umbrella the right brainers into the creators and the designers. That doesn't goes to say that they never use their left side of brain, or the analytical ones never use the right side of the brain. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to stick to creators being the right side of the brain. Talking about emotions, right? So what do we mean when we say that they are more emotional as beings? What I mean is that when we look at users, designers don't look at users as customers. They look at users as people. Think about the pain points that the people have. They have the ability to empathize. They have the ability to be more compassionate and keep emotions in the forefront of everything that they do. And not just that, they have the ability to kind of think beyond themselves, to put themselves into the shoes of these other users who are actually living in the world using their products. For this, I would like to highlight this example. It's a piece of design I absolutely look up to. It's inspired from this thing called emotional design, where how choices and decisions are driven by the feeling that an object gives you, how you actually choose to buy one object over the other just because how this one made you feel over the other object. This is the design about the EAMES chair, where the inspiration was supposed to be this old rugged glove from a baseball glove, how it's actually in the roughness of it, in the quality of it being used, it makes you feel comfortable. In the quality of it being shaped a certain way, makes you feel like the ball is sitting in there comfortably. So this chair is designed by keeping these qualities in mind. Even the qualities that the ball must be feeling have been incorporated into the design of this chair. So that's what it truly means to actually being emotional while designing. There is another great example of this banana packaging, banana fruit juice packaging. Not just the function of this packaging of holding the juice is serving the purpose, but even the form of it talks about, hey, it's fresh, come drink me. It has the same form through the curvatures on the packaging, through the colors that it has been used to give you the same feeling of a fresh banana. There is a friend of mine who has this toaster. It's by this company called Rebel. And there is the first button, if you see on the toaster, it says a bit more. It talks about how more and more designers are able to bring in the right emotions to inanimate object. How designers and creators are able to bring in the idea of having a conversation as easy as talking to another human being. Which is why UX writing becomes so much more important with each day, because you want the product to talk to the user. You want the user to very easily interact with the product. The second quality I want to talk about is being imaginative. Here I have put some examples from one of the artists that I really look up to, Christoph Niemann. What does it mean to be imaginative? I think designers and artists have this ability to kind of break from what is normal, to have this ability to kind of think beyond what is the most obvious. They can let their minds wander. They can be more visual in the way that they are thinking. And there are so many ways this can be leveraged in everyday. So many ways this can be leveraged into your team meetings every day. So many ways this can be leveraged into working on a certain design brief. When a designer thinks about a chair, a designer doesn't think about just a normal chair. They have this vast form of iterations in their mind. They break the brief, they challenge the brief, they don't think of a chair, they think of a form to sit on and to be comfortable in. And that these are the things that they can come up with when they actually let their imaginations run. The third quality I want to talk about is of that of being holistic thinkers, that of allowing ourselves or designers allowing themselves to kind of zoom out and see the entire end-to-end experience, see how the brand is going to look from a tiniest pixel on the phone to the billboard that you see on the road, how they connect and make it feel like it belongs to the same brand, it is talking like the same person, it's wearing the same clothes. One very beautiful example of this is, I think, Starbucks. They are such holistic thinkers. I think such a beautiful example of a design forward company where they don't just think of how to improve their coffee. They think of the entire end-to-end experience on how a customer feels when they come in, how their employees feel like when they come in. They have designed this whole concept of a third place wherein it's a place where you feel comfortable outside your work and your home. Even the tables at Starbucks are like designed to be circular so that you don't feel alone when you're sitting there. It feels like a more comfortable environment and a more comfortable area. And another example is this award-winning Band-Aid packaging, of thinking more holistically, of not just designing the Band-Aid, but even the packaging in which it comes, understanding what is the mindset of the user when they are using this product. They have their finger cut, it's burning, they don't have any ability to open the drawer, get the Band-Aid out and put it on it. How about designing the packaging in a way that it sits comfortably in the place and so that you find it exactly when you need it. And it also looks good. So yeah, that's the third the last one that I would like to talk about is that of being super detail obsessed. I think this is something that should not come as a surprise to anyone. I have a frame in my living room that is crooked right now, but and it's playing in my head and I can't get it out. Exactly the way designers obsess about pixels and padding and spacing, because it does have an implication in in real life. If you see these two examples, the one on the right doesn't tell you that it needs to be scrolled, but small details like on the left, just showing half card outside the screen will give that affordance to the designer or to the user that, hey, this needs to be scrolled. Talking about attention to detail, I think Apple does a phenomenal job of that just by taking this example of the way AirPods are designed. I think there is anything more that you can add to this. There's nothing more that you can take from this. The way the curves are designed, the way the tiny notches in between that allows you to rest your thumb on it and open it, the way the sound of click comes when you shut it. It is that details that actually create that magical experience that Apple has been able to achieve. So yes, these are some things that designers really obsess about. And it's not something they choose to do, it's how they are made. It's how right side dominant people think. But how do you kind of leverage this onto your team? How do you kind of use all these qualities of being emotional, of being holistic thinkers, allow to foster in your team and build a product that's in the end super impactful and well designed? So moving to the first quality again, talking about us being us being emotional beings. I'm sorry. Us being emotional beings. Like I said, I think designers have the ability to really obsess with people, really understand their users and their pain points. So one thing I would say in working with designers is involve them earlier in the conversation, send them out, let them actually talk to the users, because when they will talk to the users with their tool of empathy and compassion, what insights they will bring to the table will be very different than the insights any analytical brain is able to bring in. So spare some time for a designer actually going out of the walls and talking to the users. Constantly find ways to share the user insights that you are getting, take screenshots, allow these designers to go and do some usability testing, because that's how they will really interact with their users and understand them better. We don't just like look at users as people, we also look at our teammates as people. Designers absolutely love working in a collaborative environment. We love design critiques. We love brainstorming together. So create more of those sessions and leverage that. Ask your designers to create workshops like that and get the entire team together and think through it. The second one is about being imaginative. So how do we kind of channel this imagination and this imaginative power that the designers have onto our products and in our product design cycle? I think one of the biggest tool anyone has who is working with designers is how you write your brief. If you be too prescriptive in the way you write your brief, if you're talking more about solutions instead of problems, you're already taken away that space for them to be more imaginative and think of more ideas. I would leave some room for designers to ask questions, leave some room for them to be more creative and find solutions to those problems. It will not be possible for the designers to come up with iteration in the same meeting. I've seen a lot of times kickoff meetings and brainstorming meetings to be clubbed into the same one. How does one come up with ideas when they've just heard the brief for the first time or they've just gotten the insights for the first time? So give them that space, create that little bit room of them to be more imaginative and more creative with their ideas. Let them wander, let them create iterations because that's how we believe we get better. Create those design critiques and feedbacks while they are working on those iterations so that everyone is thinking together. The last one is, yes, use your fences when needed, because sometimes as much as being creative is one of our strengths, is also one of our weaknesses. We can wander off into multiple directions. Sometimes we don't know what we end up designing. So help create some of these fences with your designers by probably breaking things down into smaller milestones and targets and doing frequent check-ins and discussions with the designers. A lot of times a designer has made a super idealistic design, but when it goes to implementation, the current business constraints and the tech stack doesn't allow that. How about you bring in the business and tech earlier in the discussion and create those constraints before? Again, I've heard a lot of PMs and engineers also talk about that. If we come in early in the discussion, it hampers creativity. But what if the current needs, the current stack doesn't allow creativity anyway? So creativity in that extent, there are multiple ways to be creative if the constraints are also defined. That's how we design for inclusivity. We have those constraints. We foster in constraints. Third quality being holistic. So how do you actually foster holistic thinking with the help of designers onto the team? Let me just go to the next slide, sorry. Yes, okay. So one of the biggest things that I spoke about, that designers have the ability to kind of zoom out and look at the entire experience end to end. What as product managers and engineers, people can do is help understand designers, because you're constantly reading about and understanding the market trends, what the business really needs, where the business is going. Help the designers kind of understand what those trends are. Help them kind of help them bridge the gap that is between business and users. Help them understand what will make a successful business. I'm sure designers will work around those constraints and figure out the right way. The other one is to expand your metrics, not just talk about business metrics, but figure out with your designers what are those other UX metrics, what are some sustainability metrics that we need to care about other than the business metrics that we are constantly looking at. Have these conversations frequently with your designers. Take them out for a coffee, understand what really matters to them and what is it that the problem that they are trying to solve, what is the impact that they are trying to create with their designs. And last one, which is go beyond one feature. Allow the designers to kind of zoom out. A lot of times what happens is we are looking at a feature, we're designing one banner, but when a designer is thinking about how this banner looks amongst other banners, they're sometimes not getting the chance to do that. So kind of zoom out when you're working on one feature to look at the entire experience end to end. What is my user doing before this, while using the feature, after using the feature? In what circumstances is the feature being used? Will they be in a bus, very crowded, holding their hand, trying to use their phone? Is my product needed then versus them sitting at home? Understand the situations in which the designs have been made. I still remember having a conversation with my product manager, and we were talking about how this banner needs a little bit more highlight. We were designing for referrals back then, how a banner needs to be more highlighted to highlight how much referral reward that user must be getting. But little in that conversation, when we kind of zoomed out, what we realized was that when we were doing any feature before that, everything needed to pop. So what you're in the end left with probably Candy Crush. Everything is popping. So think about a holistic experience of where a certain feature comes in the entire UX. And the last one that I want to talk about is obsessive. Yes, we do obsess over small details. Designers do obsess over small details. Alignment will always be our biggest enemy. But what as product managers you can probably help do is help them prioritize, help them understand how to measure success of their designs, help them understand what the business needs at that time and why, and also understand from them why. At each stage in the process, go back to the success metrics. Even when give feedback, bring those success metrics back in. Instead of talking about whether it should be a checkbox or a radio button, talk about, hey, since the business cares for X, I think this is not very clearly highlighted. So we should be talking about this more. So when you give your feedback, give it by bringing those metrics back in, by bringing the problems and the people back in. So, and that's how you will constantly help them reinforce what the success is of their design, what do they need to measure. Also involve them once the design has been gone out into measuring what the impact is of their design. And like post shipping analysis is very important. A lot of times we make designs, we move to another project and never know how our designs was actually used by the consumer, used by the people out there. Understand those, go out, see your users using and interacting with your product and see what changes can be brought back in. So in the end, I would like to say that both a right brain dominant and a left brain dominant is what completes a team. The Chicago Bulls weren't complete without Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, or Dennis. They all needed to be there on the team for it to be a complete team. It's very important to realize and understand how to leverage each of these people's strengths, because that's what will finally complete a team. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry if I was too fast, guys.
I think the audience will be able to comment on that. This was really, I mean, I didn't feel this was fast at all. Thank you for this, Fatema. Okay, so we have a few questions over here. Yeah.
Can I stop sharing?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
You
can share it. Okay. Right. So we do have a few questions. Let's take them up in the chat one by one. And do you want to answer some of those questions that we discussed from the sheet as well, right?
I will need somebody's help to ask me the questions from that sheet. I don't have it available right now.
Okay, great. I'll share the list that I shared. The questions that I shared with you, and we'll take them one by one. I'll also write them into the chat, and people can simply +1 to a few of those questions if you're interested.
All right, sounds good.
Right, so I'll take the chat questions first. Shruti, are you here? Do you want to ask a question? She was here. Okay, where did she go? She's still here. Okay, but just 1 second here. I have removed unmuting everyone. Okay, they can unmute themselves. Yeah, Shruti, please try to unmute yourself. Okay, I'll take her question. She asks, how do I inspire my designers for ideas and insights that I see from data, and they don't, because they don't see the data real time like me, and they end up having their own vision?
Okay, so I will answer that. I think firstly, the idea is to make the data real time available to the designers. I think I mentioned in the chat, in the talk as well, that whenever you find an interesting insight, share it with your designers. Ask them about what do they think that metric means before you even put what you think your hypothesis is of that number changing in that certain way. So I would say that would be one thing, which is to make that data available in the first place to the designers. And if they have their own questions and own vision of that data, which is exactly what you want, right? You want a new perspective because the perspective that you have that you already know you can either take it or leave it, but the idea is to understand from everyone how every different person kind of perceives that data.
Okay, thank you for that. Shruti, I hope this answers the question. The next one is from Kani. Kani, you want to come up on stage and ask this question?
Yeah, sure. So my question was that when you work with designers, right, like at least the way I have worked with, I don't know, you often tend to give some sort of visual cues, right? Like images or like something which inspire you in the form of video or something like that. So I don't know how helpful is that, or is that a detrimental to the design process? Just wanted to know your thoughts on that. Yeah.
No, not at all. You can always tell the designer that, hey, since I am a visual thinker, it helps me make a brief in a visual way. And these are some things that I could think of. Please take it or leave it. This is just my thoughts so that I could explain the brief better, but doesn't necessarily have to show up in the end design. I think if you start off the conversation like that, there is more openness to understanding why you have actually went ahead and probably created a mood board for them.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Then the next one that we have is from Joel. Joel, again, do you want to come up on stage?
Hey everyone. Actually, is it okay if I ask a completely different question? Like
Yes, please.
I promise I'm just actually asking. Like I actually want to understand this a bit better. So I'm a PM, but I come from an engineering background, and sort of both of those disciplines have a strong focus on like iterative development and like iterative improvement, right? So as you mentioned that the designer community can do iterations, but somehow there is a feeling that like the designer culture is that like it should be done completely. Like this is, hey, we had the old version of the website, it's done. Now the new version of the website is like, this is a completely fresh project. Like somehow I haven't been able to crack like how to talk to designers about like, hey, this is a website. Can we evolve the design? Like, yes, you have a target design that you want to reach to.
Yeah.
Can we go from A to B in steps? Is something I don't know how to speak about that to designers. Like, I don't know if that question makes sense even, but this seems to be like, okay.
It does actually. I think designers are extremely iterative. Like I said, what you can help probably designers is understand that if the new version of the website has to be done. I think from how much I understand, all the designers in the tech world know that it's an agile process, know that it's an iterative process. So I think there is a gap in probably understanding how they define iterative and how you define iterative, right? I think the idea is to sit with them and understand that, hey, if this website needs another version, what would be the first thing we would use to fix it? What do you think are the low-hanging fruits, right? Probably help them break that down. A lot of times designers just think of old and new, and probably they don't think of things in between. But if we had to break them down and understand their hypothesis. So let's say I say that, hey, this needs a redesign. The entire app needs a redesign. But the low-hanging fruit for me would be probably navigation, right? So that's where you can bring in that thing that, hey, how about we just experiment with moving the navigation at the bottom, creating that sticky, and just seeing if that changes any numbers for us, just taking it outside to the users and seeing how they are interacting with this. So I think where you can probably come in is probably help them break into smaller experiments and understand that, hey, with this, we will measure how easy was it, how quickly was it to click on this button, find out those UX metrics that would be true, which could be time to completion, which could be time to discover. So find out those metrics that are important, and based on that, make smaller changes for them, position it to them that, hey, you will be able to learn before we go into a full-fledged redesign from what.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think
because see, I mean, like, I think this makes a lot of sense because I was also feeling. See, the point is like, I also want, like, I agree, like, you should redesign the whole website, for example, right? But then sometimes it happens where like the economics or like it's not. There's not enough budget or runway, or there are. I mean, I feel it feels almost. I feel I wish that I didn't have to talk about like money with the designer, but like somehow that part comes in and like it feels weird or uncomfortable to bring that as a constraint. But I think like using metrics as like a goal or something that might make it easier. Or maybe just get more comfortable talking like something seems weird in that or like blocker.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I couldn't hear you clearly because I'm not sure if it's my internet or.
Oh, it
That-
might be.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that would be a great idea to kind of understand why do they think it needs a complete revamp? What do they think are the low-hanging fruits? Why do they think it has to be approached? When they ask why, you have the power to ask why back. And from that, probably you will be able to figure out what do they really care about. And sometimes some junior designers might not immediately understand how to transform that into their UX metrics. That's where probably you can come in and bring in that analytical side and help them find those UX metrics that would be important. For example, when I was working at Gojek, one of the things when we were designing for the dish page, when you land on a restaurant, when I was designing for GoFood, when you land on a restaurant, we were supposed to introduce these discounts on top. What that did was constantly made the dishes kind of push at the bottom. So one of the UX metrics we came up with is that no matter what we do on this page, the time that a user takes to add their first dish to cart shouldn't increase. Right. So find out what your boundaries are first with some of those things. And yeah, that could help you make the designer
Break through this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question, Jewel. The next, we have two questions from Anas. Do you want to come up on stage and again ask this question?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So the amateur maybe question because the work culture in our place is that products have to be delivered very fast, and there is not much time of iteration given to us. So there are like series of products getting launched, and there's no second look happening. In that, with what happens is that we have to force even the designers and the developers to deliver products faster, which case they are not very close to the design. So the designer has something in mind, they create a very detailed, but the developers, they are not able to accommodate that into the design, and it gets delivered directly. So can you help me with some tools or some books which I can give to my developers, or something that can be done to make this transition from design to development faster?
I think one of the ways to handle this is bring the developer in the wireframe discussion when you are creating wireframes together. The developer will be able to tell you what is the current tech stack that's there, what is going to be possible, and how much time will a certain things take. No one said that developers shouldn't be obsessing about UX. I think the idea is to get them as excited about UX. The idea is to take your developers with your designers to the users and make them talk to them. So I think that is the right way to kind of approach this, because that will help you set your constraints a lot before. Then the designer will be able to work under these constraints and be creative just within that and not go far and beyond, which is then, because when we make a design and it's not implemented the same way, honestly, it loses the original meaning of how the design was made, because we stripped down parts of it one by one. So it's not the same that it was when it started.
Correct. This is the complaint that we receive from the designers a lot.
Yeah. I think because a lot of times happens is that the constraints are put a lot later. And I think they should come in a lot before that. Hey, this is the field that we have to play with. And the best way to know is to actually be getting the developers in the wireframing discussions.
So the constraints can be both in terms of components that they're using, and also with respect to what the amount of level of change that they can do with the fonts or with the small details in the design.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
So basically, so there are few components that they would be using, which whose development would be a little difficult for them. Right, there are some components within the design. So that is why I was looking for something. If you have some tool or some book which you can suggest that can make this process easier, because I want to accommodate exact designs that designers are building. So apart from talking with the developer, is there anything else that you would like to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say designer developer pairing. It's very underrated. I think that should happen a lot more, which is when the designer and the developer pair, and when the the developer is coding, the designer is immediately reviewing and honing their eye. The other way is to like build the relationship between your designers and developers. Make that gap a bit narrower. Ask the designers to share products and designs that they're looking at, that they're fascinated by. Probably that's featured on the App Store of the Month app, and to share that with their developers. And I think one of the best ways that has helped me as a trick is to make a developer a really good friend, and that's how that exchange of learning and ideas gets each of them excited. Where the developer can tell the designer that, hey, this is something that we can actually do. What can we design around this? Or the designer saying that, hey, this is something I found out. How long will it take to implement? Try and also get yourself, if you're a PM, out of the picture altogether. Let them start having some of those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you for that answer and for the question. We actually had one of the similar questions in the sign-up form. I'm slightly curious from Fatema. So when you mentioned that pairing up designers and developers, where do the product manager fits into this picture, or are they not involved?
I mean, I think the idea is the product manager is to kind of bring insights and information and give it to the team, have the team all together to discuss on ideas and ask questions around those insights and come up with solutions together. So I think the product manager's job is to communicate what the high level goals are and what the user problems are and what the business and the user should be caring about. And then getting these two skills together to kind of find those solutions for it. So I think, if that answers your question.
Understood. Okay. Then the next one that we have is from Shreya. Again, do you want to mute yourself and come up?
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Shreya.
Hi. Hey, thank you. This is really insightful. I think I have a similar question to Joel, but I still put it out because it's kind of a little troublesome in my life right now. How do I work my way or collaborate with designers who are I feel there is a little hesitation, there's hesitation for experimentation. And instead of iterating what they want is right at the first experiment or in the first start itself, to have a very in-depth approach and a perfect approach, whereas there are a lot of ideas and a lot of thought processes and data points, and I as a PM am someone who wants to experiment and get data and understand which ones to go ahead with. Sometimes I want to try out some bold ideas as well, but I feel there is hesitation, and how do I work around that? How do I improve in collaboration there? Because I think it's just a different approach of building products. Like, yeah, I think that's the core.
Are you talking about things that only you want to experiment, or are you also talking about things that the designers might want to experiment?
No, there are things that, I mean, from a problem statement, let's say, for example, a banner, right, which is not visible, the CTR is bad. There are things that the designer might also want to do, things that the data team has pointed out. Maybe, let's say, personalization might make sense. But what I see is there's a lot of time initially that's spent to get the perfect design ready. And if there are different ideas that you want to experiment, there is a certain hesitation about it.
Okay, I think the problem here is that the ideas are only coming from the product team and not the design team, is what I'm hearing. I think if the designers are made to explain the problem and ask them that, hey, so I would say the easiest way to kind of do this is, right, like when you are giving them a brief, ask them that, hey, one is that let's think of the most ideal way to solve this. The second is, hey, let's think of the most easiest way to solve this, right? So I think even in your iterations, if you could just figure out these two variations, right? Because one is what the designer is also going to be able to give you like a holistic view. And the other is the designer is going to be able to use everything that's available to quickly be able to deliver this. So I would say that find out, asking the right questions to the designer in the sense that, hey, since this is the insight we have, what is the quickest way to kind of experiment this, right? I think sometimes what happens is if you let the designers allow the ideations amongst themselves, for them to feel that, hey, this is an experimentation they have thought along with you, and it's not something that only the product team has thought and has come to them. I think the problem lies that all the experiments that are happening are all product initiatives. None of
Got it.
the designers wants to do is getting experimented. So how about the way these experiments are thought of is actually thought of along with the designers?
Got it. Fatma, one thing that I tried, but I am yet to evaluate whether this is a good approach, is that I have in the recent features, I have not given any suggestions on how we should solve this problem at all. So what I've done is just given the context and asked the designer to lead the experimentation. Like, you tell me what you want to experiment, or you tell me how you want to do it, and completely pulled back. But I have a feeling that that's also not something that they want. When I completely pull back and give the charge, I think that's also something a designer doesn't want to do.
I think, yeah, the idea
Yeah.
is to collaborate, right? The idea is not to either let them do it completely or for yourself to do it completely, right? The idea is to do it with them. So I remember about a few years ago, we were designing for the backend system of our food delivery app, the CMS side of it. And even the discussion that I had with my product manager then was, even when we were discussing the brief we were discussing while wireframing and whiteboarding together. And I think that helped me understand the problem and the experiment that we wanted to run so much better, because there could have been so many times that things would have just been back and forth in discussions, but we decided that, hey, since we are confused about this, let's just figure out the easiest way to test this out and go out with it, right? So I think that is a good way of doing it, which is collaborating and not either letting them or yourself kind of take ownership, but it be a shared ownership in some way.
Got it. Yeah, I was initially collaborating, but I thought giving them more independence and like letting them drive might help. But I think, yeah, what they're looking for is a better collaboration. I'll try the quickest and the best approach, like kind of to figure out the two ends and see how we can balance it out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just
No,
openly sharing my struggles.
No, please, because that's what this is for, right? And Shreya, please feel free to also drop an email if you want feedback on the PRD that you've probably given in terms of feedback for them to be super independent and open with the ideas, right? I can probably help you understand that what could have been different in that, or what could have helped the designers a bit more. I also don't know the level of designers that you're working with, right?
Yeah.
There are other seniors, so I can probably help you along those lines, because sometimes very senior designers or senior designers might not even need a PRD. They will write their own PRD and start off, right?
Actually, you have kind of like hit. I will share my PRD. That feedback will be really helpful. Currently, I'm mostly working with one junior designer and one mid-level designer. I am kind of facing a problem with the junior designer. So just trying to understand what would work better in general. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think like as with junior designers, I would say that create a more of a collaborative space, because they don't really understand how to measure a certain success metrics. Sit with them and define those metrics that, hey, this is the design we want to go ahead with, or this is the ideation we want to go ahead with. How are we going to measure if this is working or no? I think involve them. Another thing is, even when the screen has been designed, before it kind of gets shipped. I still remember my product managers back in Gojek sitting me down, talking to me, and we all of us discussing what to track, how to track, why to track this, why do you want an event here, and what value will it add, right? So I think involve them in all of these different, even by asking them questions that this is the data or this is what we are shipping, what do you think we should be tracking and why, will really help foster a two-way conversation.
Got it. In order to improve myself, I started writing concept documents, and post the concept documents started doing brainstorming. Also, just fun fact, I also work at Gojek. So so it's so design heavy, right? Like, yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out my way around it. Anyway, thank you. You've been really kind.
Yeah, which product?
I am right now, I've taken up loyalty for them. We're doing Go to Loyalty. Go Club is within it, and then Tokopedia Loyalty together. Yeah.
You're working with James, I guess.
Oh yeah, James Speaker. Oh yeah, right.
All right. I will not go down.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you for that question, Shreya. It was very relevant. I mean, with the follow-up questions, we did cover a lot of other questions that I've written down. Joel, I do see your question, and I think I'll ask this one that we got in the sign-up form, and this will probably be the last question that we have for today. It's what kind of skills or knowledge that PMs, engineers, and others who are working with designers should gain so that they can work better and then empathize with designers better.
Yeah, I think one is like if you expect designers to understand DAOs and MTUs, just the least we can do is understand the right way, the right terminologies, the right way to articulate feedback. So there are actually certain websites that will help you understand the UX laws. There are many websites made for that. So instead of saying make the logo bigger, which has been the biggest problem that the designers have, how do we ensure that our brand is getting enough reinforcement through the flow would be a better way of giving that feedback. Or so I think one is that. The other is, I think, looking at products and critiquing it from a user-centric perspective, or pick up products that you really, really love or you really, really appreciate. It could be an app on Apple, it could be Swiggy, if that's what you think is well designed, and really understand that what about it makes you all feel that it is well designed, right? Or it is a good product. What about the product makes you think that it is making your life better and easier and smoother to use? Just by critiquing these products like this from a user-centric perspective, I think that's what designers also do for their own research. So I think that will help build that eye for design, the ability to empathize with how a designer looks at a product. So I think that's one way. I think just researching products and looking at them is the best way to kind of hone your design eye, and picking the right words, I think is another way of working with designers, because obviously, like I said, senior designers will kind of break your brief and look inside the brief. They will break your feedback, look inside the feedback, but it might not be possible for probably a junior designer to defend their designs in that way. So I would say that push them to be better designers just by reusing that, even if they don't know that term or articulation, push them. I'll draw from my personal experience. The first time I heard of cognitive overload was by a product manager and not by a designer. And I was like, I should be knowing this. And that's what pushed me to also become a more and more better designer. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you for sharing that, Shuri, Fatima. Right. Just one follow-up question. You mentioned that there are a lot of websites to learn design. I have come across a few, but could you please share that for the audience?
Yes. All right. I think there is one called the Laws of UX. That's a pretty interesting website.
Are you also sharing your screen or just searching?
No, I'm just searching right now. I'm just, Laws of UX. Let me just quickly paste this.
I will type it for the laws of.
No, I pasted the link. And let me. How about I share it with you?
Definitely. Yeah. I'll make it post session, and then folks, I'll share it on your email, and this time you should, all of you should get it. Right. Thank you so much for today's session, Fatima. This was really short, so sweet, so much crisp and to the point learning. I'm sure folks over here enjoyed a lot. I mean, as much as I did. Right. We will. I will share all these websites, and we will also discuss if there's anything else that any other resource that we can share with you. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, Fatima. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Utkarsh. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in on a Saturday evening. Utkarsh, please drop my email ID with everyone. I would love to help however I can.
Are you sure? So, I mean, with only these people, because there's like
these people.
Okay. So I'll actually drop it over here, just in case. It's Fatima at FamPay.in, right?
Yes, FamPay.in, yes. Okay. Guys, actually, I highly recommend you all watching. If you all want to read stuff, I recommend. Sorry, Utkarsh, to cut you off, but I just remember two more things that I can recommend. One is a 99% Invisible had a collaboration with Vox, and they have made a beautiful series on design documentaries, just 5-minute, 4-minute. Vox documentary in collaboration with 99% Invisible. And the other is whoever has not seen Abstract on Netflix, please go ahead and please watch Abstract. I think that will deep dive into so many things that I have touched upon today and will help you empathize and understand how design really works, how to leverage designers better. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for that as well, Fatima. All right, folks, I'll share these resources once again on your email. Right, yeah, that's about it, folks. So one other thing, the next session that we have is with Vineet Tiwari and Shahina Atarwala. That's next week, and that's aimed ideally at design leaders. But if you are one of those, or if you have friends who are design leaders who might want to understand this is a topic, how to build and scale design orgs, then please do join in. It would be the same time, 7 p.m. next Saturday. Thanks, folks, for joining. Thanks again, Fatima.